Chapter 5, How to Eliminate 50% of your tour business worries. If you are a businessman, you are probably saying to yourself right now, the title of this chapter is ridiculous. I have been running my business for 19 years and I certainly know the answer. If anybody does, the idea of anybody trying to tell me how I can eliminate 50% of my business worries, it's absurd. Fair enough, I would have felt exactly the same way myself a few years ago if I had seen this title on a chapter. I promises a lot and promises are cheap. Let's be very frank about it. Maybe I won't be able to help you eliminate 50% of your business worries. In the last analysis, no one can do that except yourself. But what can I do is to show you how other people have done it and leave the rest to you. You may recall that one page 25 of this book, I quoted the world famous Dr. Alexis Carrel as saying, businessmen who do not know how to fight worry die young. Since worry is that serious, wouldn't you be satisfied if I could help you eliminate even 10% of your worries? Yes, good. Well, I am going to show you how one business executive eliminate not 50% of his worries but 75% of all the time he formerly spent in conference trying to solve business problems. Furthermore, I'm not going to tell you this story about a Mr. Jones or Mr. X or a man I know in Ohio. Vague stories that you can't check up on. It concerns a very real person, Leon Shimkin, a partner general manager of one of the foremost publishing houses in the United States, Simon and Hester Rockefeller Center, New York 20, New York. Here is Leon Shimkin experience in his own words. For 15 years, I spent almost half of every business day holding conferences, discussing problems. Should we do this or that? Do nothing at all. We would get tense and tossed in our chair, walk the floor, argue, and go around in circles. When night came, I would be utterly exhausted. I fully expected to go on doing this sort of thing for the rest of my life. I had been doing it for 15 years, and it never occurred to me that there was a better way of doing it. If anyone had told me that I could eliminate three-fourths of all the time I spent in those worried conferences and three-fourths of my nervous strain, I would have thought he was a wild-eyed, slap-happy, armchair optimistic. Yet I devised a plan that did just that. I have been using this plan for 8 years. It has been performed wonder for my efficiency, my health, and happiness. It sounds like magic, but like all magic trick, extremely simple when you see how it is done. Here is the secret. First, I immediately stopped the procedure I had been using in my conference for 15 years. Procedure that began with my trouble associate reciting all the details of what had gone wrong and ending up by asking what shall we do. Second, I made a rule that everyone who wishes to present a problem to me must first prepare and submit a memorandum. Answer these four questions. Question 1: what is the problem? In the old days, we used to spend an hour or two in a worried conference without anyone knowing, especially and concretely, that the real problem was. We used to work ourselves into a lather discussing our troubles without troubling to write out especially what our problem was. Question number two: what is the cause of the problem? As I look back over my career, I am at the wasted hours I have spent in word conference without ever trying to find out clearly the condition which lay at the root of the problem. Question number three: what are all possible solutions of the problem? In the old days, one man in the conference would suggest one solution, someone else would argue with him, tempers would flare, we would often get clear of the subject, and at the end of the conference, no one would have written down all the various things we could do to attack the problem. What solution do you suggest? I used to go into the conference with a man who had spent hours worrying about a situation and going around in circles without even one thinking through all possible solution, then writing down this is the solution I recommended. My associate really come to me now with their problems. Why? Because they have discovered that in order to answer these four questions, they have to get all the facts and think their problem through. After they have done that, they find in three-fourth of the cases they don't have to consult me at all because the proper solution has popped out like a piece of bread popping out from the electric toaster. Even in those cases where consultation is necessary, the discussion takes about one third the time formerly required because it proceeds along an orderly logical path to a reasoned conclusion. Much less time is now consumed in the House of Cement and Hester in worrying, talking about what is wrong. A lot more action is obtained towards making those things right. My friend Frank Batger, one of the top insurance men in America, tells me he not only reduce his business worries but nearly double his income by a similar method. Years ago, Frank Batger, when I first started to sell insurance, I was filled with a boundless enthusiasm and love for my work. Then something happened. I became so discouraged that I despised my work and thought of giving it up. I think I would have quit if I hadn't got the idea one Saturday morning of sitting down and trying to get at the root of my worries. Number one, I asked myself first just what is the problem? The problem was that I was not getting high enough return for the staggering amount of calls I was making. I seems to do pretty well at selling a prospect until the moment came for closing a sale. Then the customer would say, well, I'll think it's over, Mr. Batger. Come and see me again. It was this time I wasted on these follow up calls that was causing my depression. Number two, I asked myself what are the possible solutions, but to get the answer to that one, I had to study the facts. I got up my record book for the last 12 months and studied the figures. I made an astounding discovery right there in black and white. I discovered that 70% of my sales had been closed on the very first interview. 23% of my sales had been closed on the second interview, and only 7% on my sale had been closed on those third, fourth, fifth interview, which were running me rag and taking up my time. In other words, I was wasting fully one half of my working day on a part of my business which was responsible for only 7% of my sales. Number three, what is the answer? The answer was obvious. I immediately cut out all visits beyond the second interview and spent the extra time building up new prospects. The results were unbelievable. In a very short time, I had almost doubled the cash value of every visit I made from a call. As I said, Frank Bedger is now one of the best known life insurance salesmen in America. He is with Fidelity Mutual of Philadelphia and writes $1 million worth of policies a year. But he was on the point of giving up. He was on the point of admitting failure until analyzes the problem gave him a boost on the road to success. Can you apply these questions to your business problem to repeat my challenge? They can reduce your worries by 50%. Here they are. What is the problem? Number 2, what is the cause of the problem? Number 3, what are all possible solutions to the problem? Number 4, what solution do you suggest? Part 2 in a nutshell. Rule number 1, give the fact. Remember that Dean Hawkes of Columbia University said that half of the worry in the world is caused by the people trying to make decisions before they have sufficient knowledge on which to base a decision. Rule number 2, after carefully weighing all the facts, come to a decision. Rule number 3, once a decision is carefully reached, act. Get busy carrying out your decision and dismiss all anxiety about the outcome. Rule number 4, when you or any of your associate are tempted to worry about a problem, write out the answer the following question. Number A, what is the problem? Number B, what is the cause of the problem? Number C, what are all possible solution? Number D, what is the best solution? 9 suggestions on how to get the most out of this book. Number 1, if you wish to get the most out of this book, there is one indispensable requirement, one essential, infinitely more important than any rules or technique. Unless you have this one fundamental requisite, a thousand rule on how to study will avail little. And if you do have this cardinal endowment, then you can achieve wonders without reading any suggestion for getting the most out of a book. What is the magic requirement? Just this, a deep driving desire to learn, a vigorous determination to stop worrying and start living. How can you develop such an urge? By constantly reminding yourself of how important these principles are to you. Picture to yourself how their mastery will aid you in living a richer, happier life. Say to yourself over and over, my peace of mind, my bless, my happiness, my health, and perhaps even my income will, in the long run, depends largely on applying the old, albeit an eternal truth taught in this book. Number 2, read each chapter rapidly at first to get a bird eye view of it. You will probably be tempted then to rush on to the next one, but don't unless you are reading merely for entertainment. But if you are reading because you want to stop worrying and start living, then go back and reread each chapter. Truly, in the long run, this will mean saving time and getting results. Number 3, stop frequently in your reading to think over what you are reading. Ask yourself just how and when you can apply each suggestion. That kind of reading will aid you far more than racing ahead like a whippet chasing a rabbit. Number 4, read with a read crayon, pencil, or fountain pen in your hand. And when you come across a suggestion that you feel you can use, draw a line beside it. If it is 4-star suggestion, then underscore every sentence or make it with XXX. Marking and underscoring a book make it more interesting and far easier to review rapidly. Number 5, I know a man who has been office manager for a large insurance concern for 15 years. He reads every month all the insurance contract his company issues. Yes, he reads the same contracts over month after month, year after years. Why? Because experience has taught him that this is the only way he can keep their provision clearly in mind. I once spent almost 2 years writing a book on public speaking, and yet I find I have to keep going back over it from time to time in order to remember what I wrote in my own book. The rapidity with which we forget is astonishing. So, if you want to get a real lasting benefit out of this book, don't imagine that skimming through it once will suffice. After reading it thoroughly, you ought to spend a few hours reviewing it every month. Keep it on your desk in front of you every day. Glance through it often. Keep constantly impressing yourself with the rich possibility for improvement that still lie in the offing. Remember that the use of these principles can be made habitual and unconscious only by a constant and vigorous campaign of review and application. There is no other way. Number six, Bernard Shaw once remarked, if you teach a man anything, he will never learn. Shaw was right. Learning is an active process. We learn by doing so. If you desire to master the principles you are studying in this book, do something about them. Apply these rules at every opportunity. If you don't, you will forget them quickly. Only knowledge that is used stick in your mind. You will probably find it difficult to apply these suggestions all the time. I know because I wrote this book, and yet frequently I find it difficult to apply everything I have advocated here. So, as you read this book, remember that you are not merely trying to acquire information, you are attempting to form new habits. Oh, yes, you are attempting a new way of life that will require time and persistence and daily application. So refer to these pages often. Regard this is a working handbook on conquering worry, and when you are confronted with some trying problem, don't get all stirred up. Don't do the natural thing, the impulse thing that is usually wrong. Instead, turn to these pages and review the paragraph you have underscored. Then try these new ways and watch them achieve magic for you. Number seven, offer you a wife a shilling every time she catch you violating one of the principles advocate in this book. She will break you. Number 8, please turn to page 193, 194 of this book and read how the Wall Street banker H.P. Howell and old Ben Franklin corrected their mistake. Why don't you use the Howell and Franklin technique to cheap up on your application of the principle discussed in this book? If you do, two things will result. First, you will find yourself engaged in an educational process that is both intriguing and priceless. Second, you will find that your ability to stop worrying and start living will grow and spread like a green bay tree. Number 9, keep a diary in which you ought to record your trump in the application of these principles. Be specific, give name, dates, result. Keeping such a record will inspire you to greater effort, and how fascinating these entries will be when you chance upon them some evening years from now. In a nutshell, number one, develop a deep driving desire to master the principle of conquering way. Number two, read each chapter twice before going to the next one. Number three, as you read, stop frequently to ask yourself how can you apply each suggestion. Number four, underscore each important idea. Number five, review this book each month. Number six, apply these principles at every opportunity. Use this volume as a working handbook to help you solve your daily problem. Number seven, make a lively game put of your learning by offering some friend a shilling every time he catch you violating one of these principles. Number eight, check up each week on the progress you are making. Ask yourself what mistakes you have made, what improvement, what lessons you have learned from for the future. Number nine, keep a diary in the keep a diary in the back of this book showing how and when you have applied these principles.